It's Monday. It's May 30th, 2022. Here where I am, they call it a holiday. They have it on the calendar as Memorial Day. It's the day where you recognize service members. I'm watching the telecast from this morning, and I'm going to start with the Channel 5 here, which is Fox, which has a Good Day New York program. There's a like Grand Sorcery Supreme type timing mechanic in aerospace this morning, because I'm thinking a 1 dot dot to an 11, I being an August 3rd and there being an August 11th out there somewhere, who also just happens to be calling himself in the American movie theaters as a god of thunder, being Thor, who, in Counting Crows kind of a way, I don't know, like how to make a nice message out of these things. They're telling me that there was some motorcycle ride. Now, normally, there's lots of displays of patriotism. This one, though, they labeled Rolling to Remember. They said, though, that changed over in 1988. It used to be something called Rolling Thunder, and Thor being the god of thunder, I thought that would be an appropriate way to address the situation at the moment. There's also, if I go to Channel 2 with CBS this morning, there was a rather odd aerospace message in this CBS, which I'm not quite sure what that means in God of Thunder territory, but in this New York with, like, I don't know if you're God Thor or my goddess Nyx. I mean, that would just make sense, but like, whatever. So in an aerospace of 1.31.09, it says lessons from Dr. Lepook. Then it goes into Her Mini Majesty with some American girl that dressed up. She's a toddler, just walking around. Then it goes into Riding Little Thunder, which is a roller coaster that's in the Wild West west of where I am, that some dad made for his child. It's very elaborate. I mean, it's impressive. And then it says, then it goes into this pressures of immigration, which is the most serious topic on the entire thing, which really is what struck me this morning and puts me in like a seether kind of a way, at 1.34.12, which is some girl. Now, in what life event I went through inside of the United States of America, being North America, this USA, there was no guidance, mentoring, push for anything college related. But yet there's this thing that happened. This woman calls herself a first-time immigrant. She, to get themselves out of poverty from wherever she comes from, in, I think, in some Asiatic area, she was granted something to a boarding school, which I was not granted to a boarding school. She then was able to pursue inside of America something called a doctorate. And then now she's a biotech engineer. I mean, she was able to go to graduate school and boarding school and all these things that I have been withheld from. but yet she's thriving here in the Americas. And now she was on something called a TikTok, crying about it, about her immigration, whatever. Now, my method of documentation's slightly different. I'm at the oppressed end of all of their success and whatever they took for granted in their whatever. I'm the one who got whatever, like hurt out of their success and like whatever. So she says that she went on TikTok, then she went on apparently TikTok has commentary. I think YouTube does. I just don't know how to check it. And same thing with Facebook. I don't have that level of internet. I have a different whatever. I have a different setup, in like just one method of communication. But there's no like groups or camaraderie, or if there are comments sent, I don't see them. I don't know how to check them. It's like the world doesn't even exist outside of my just making documentation for my journey of what I've actually experienced and been through, not opinion pieces, more injury. All the injury I've suffered going through this America or this New York in the way that transient work has been done. So, so that's interesting because I don't want somebody to set an expectation that if somebody is actually trying to do something nice or to send a nice message, I don't want them to think that I'm ignoring them. But then again, there's also this other thing of like the really evil out there that do like death threats and all that other stuff, which really frightens me. But that's what the professionals handle, I'm assuming. At whatever. So anyhow, so this is what it looks like this morning. I'll start at Good Day New York, which is the Fox network, which is and whatever in the changeover, which I don't know in greater existential what that significance was in 1988. I don't know what it ties into. I just know they reference thunder several times this morning, but in several different aspects, in several different ways across the spectrum. Oh, and then there's this really interesting thing, this under 6 foot person named Ryan, who has a talk show. I think he did something called an American Idol where he held a microphone. He got really great compensation and pay and a really nice lifestyle. He was able to keep himself like really clean cut and whatever, doesn't have to wear disgusting sweats. Like, I mean, I don't even have money to pay for clothing at this point. On top of some of the environmental factors that are going on in the New York area, but separate story. So I'm not quite sure, but he says he had a really great dad. His dad was regimented. He had grandfather who was a general. He had a dad who was something else. He got to go on a visit to the Pentagon. I mean, like, he knows stuff, and like he had this really great opportunity, and he was taken care of very well. Not quite sure why my appearance on the face of the earth was shoved in some other whatever, and the treatment of my appearance in the same August being the most important cosmologically and astrologically on the 3rd, which again, there's zodiac reference. Not quite sure why I was treated so differently than the others. Or why the lead into my appearance, if they're going to force me into this human storyboard or storyline, why was mine so disastrously like executed and directed and formulated? It doesn't make sense in like a spectrum of physics and like quirky things and bosons and charm and theoretical, practical, but not, I mean, more, it looks more spectacle at this point, which I didn't want to be.
Thousands of bikers from across the country came to Washington, D.C. to support our nation's veterans. The entire area around the National Mall was shut down yesterday for the annual Rolling to Remember event. It shines a light on prisoners of war, military members missing in action, and the struggles that veterans face. The event first began back in 1988 and was called Rolling Thunder at the time. Its name was changed to Rolling to Remember 2 years ago.
And 181,000 people came to Jones Beach to watch.
Now, that was the first piece that referenced the salutations, perhaps, to the god of thunder, letting you know that somebody changed it to Rolling to Remember. Now, for me, I have a rather lengthy medical dialogue with just myself at the moment. I think in one of your movies you referenced something called a tesseract, being this like light-shaped cube. I guess it would technically qualify for such if we were speaking one-on-one, which I'm not at the moment. But in the New York area where I am held or being moved around as in this appearance of freedom, which I really don't have, I'm looking for answers like who do I go to speak, like how do you get to some semblance of reality, like where did I go wrong, how am I supposed to take care of myself, God forbid my parents die tomorrow, and so on and so forth. And then I look at these things like today there's a reporter on this ship. So here's a small surface area of this floating disconnect from the rest of the world. And somehow, whoever's in charge of this thing called this baton or batan, the number 5, they have their employees or their people that work on the ship. They show up and somebody tells them what to do. Somebody gives them a life function that gives them meaning and purpose, and that they can show pride in their ability to perform this function. I think that's an amazing way humans should function. Problem is, in New York, within my life frame, I have no such person. I don't understand how humans in this particular industry recognize and function at such a high capacity, and that they get the way things should be run and how to most efficiently process whatever they need to process. But yet when you leave the deck of this really well-functioning machine and you get to surface Earth where the other humans live in some alternate reality, everything falls apart. Why is that? Why is there no land structure, no societal structure? Why is there no, in school they lied. They said there was framework and builders of a nation somewhere on land. I have yet to find those hands to hold or those over 6 foot to look up to. Again, there's been quick, they appear. I'm caught off guard. They're my guard, but I'm off guard for the moment because I don't know, I might not be up to that part in the explanation that they may have known ahead of time, but I wasn't at the time that they were at when it happened. So it made the conversation a little confusing, because if they needed to know things then, but they already knew things, explaining it to me is really easy if you show up at the surprise birthday party and you need to know things that you already know, but just to confirm things, it's I'm time and space, I pop too. It's well, somebody knows something, great. Bring me up to speed real fast. But yet, on a day-to-day, there's not any of that really great momentum in like a carry forward type of a way, which then leads me into this life of chaos. And at the moment, it's burdening me with some form of disease in the sense of there's some kind of air pollutant outside right now. They call it mulberry in like a grass weed type of a way that floats through the air like a cloud of, they call it pollen, but it's when you breathe it in, it causes all sorts of stressors, which dynamically break down the health and efficiency. It messes with the immune system and so on and so forth. So that's a problem. But I mean, again, it's the same thing every time you eat or drink something. It feels like in this area, it's been designed to somehow cause a reaction that brings you one step closer to death. So this way you are sucked into the vortex of their medical system where they take pride in breaking you down to build their careers, to build you back up in some. I mean, I understand why at one level. Again, I want to stay at a God level. I really don't want to stay at the really questionable biomedical ethical field and practices of this area. But here's this ship working. They have two examples of people that work there and know what to do every day when they walk on the ship.
A somber day as we remember those who have fallen in service. All of our service members who have fallen from the U.S. Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and the Coast Guard as well. But we are honored today to be joined by two active duty military personnel. Here they are. We have Airman Ford and Petty Officer Lewis, who is in charge of the flight deck. And you see this massive Osprey behind us. So first of all, Petty Officer Lewis, talk to us about the flight deck and what you're in charge of up here, because it's a big one.
Again, they construct the expectation so when they walk into the situation, they know how to conduct themselves. I mean, wow. Something actually working efficiently in a human capacity. It's amazing. I don't live in this world. I wish I did, where people have set expectations, set design parameters, set directives, and function. There's none of that within my life frame. It's been really frustrating.
Hi, good morning. So I'm in charge of just the daily operations for all the flight, all the aircraft, making sure that we make everything safe for our sailors, making sure that all of our missions and everything for the teams are accomplished on time.
And when you ask her what her human daily function is, she's able to explain it because it's been given to her and she's been able to perform at that level and within that action. Problem is, since like I was little, I've been searching for that human that has this plan, that has this construct that I can just enter into and they could designate me somewhere I need to be, but it hasn't happened.
Everything like that. This is a LHD platform, so we deal with a lot of helicopters, CH-53s, MV-22s, as we have right behind us. And these are for pack sailors, so these are for our actual passengers. So they'll come on, the Marines will bring them on board, or any cargo that we might need. This is the aircraft that we would use. So we have 9 spots.
Thing for you to be able to serve our nation, and especially today on Memorial Day as we remember those who have fallen before us.
I think it'll have to be the people you meet along the way. Some of my best friends, closest people I ever met, they came from this ship alone. This is my first ship. I've only been here for going on 2 years now, but and I've met such incredible people that I'll never forget. And when we come out here on this,
Yeah. There's something they call school in this like umbrella term that they hold you captive in during your youth, where you don't have access to like physical activity like really the way that one would need in order to stay fit. But I digress. I mean, at the most it's like 30 minutes of some kind of activity. And that's at the most, and that's really the most that you see during any one given 24-hour period. And then the rest is sitting in a chair. So they're teaching you to sit in a chair and just wait. It's now been, I sit in this chair, 43 years of this. I'm pretty sure it is the most poorly thought out and laid out plan, unless the outcome that they expected was to break me down biologically until I die. It's really disgusting. Now here's this really lucky kid named Ryan, or guy named Ryan, who's on televised whatever in the New York area. He goes on the show. He acts really silly all day long, or every morning. But he's also had a serious role on this American Idol. And he's speaking of just how fortunate he was as a child growing up under a different lifestyle. He seems to have this group of people who they were born into some kind of construct, or they helped build that level of construct, and then they were able to pass it on to their children, where even if their children didn't really appreciate it, they are so much more fortunate than the rest of us left in this chaotic, left behind or abandonment, whatever.
In the Army, is dinner at 5:06?
Militant and
Yes,
scheduled.
I didn't
Well,
wanna
my
say
father's
more.
not only just like he was in the Army, and he's a defense lawyer. So, thank you.
Let's see, for me, that means it not like I say it means nothing. It means a lot, because I know it sounds very important somewhere in the world. I don't have a construct for it. Like there should be, like, her reaction's like, oh my gosh, like there should be that reaction, except I don't know how humans formulated these constructs. And while I can play pretend in like giving a reaction like that face to face, I have no base at the moment. So I'm like almost sinking into sand. So it's really hard to build something when you're already like up to your knees in sand, and like trying to figure it out.
Understanding this is why I am this way. As you would call me, impatient. My mom calls me impatient, but it's because I'm a product of
a
everything's
regimented
gotta
life.
be really regimented and scheduled.
Yeah, I've always wondered. And also, there's always been a lot of actors and actresses that grew up on bases because they've had to go to a new school so often that they had to kind of create different personalities.
Characters, right? That's like good for the craft, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, so that's why I'm impatient.
You're in entertainment, but you're a mogul, not an actor.
I dabble making people's careers in singing, which is really not me. It's just the judges in America. But I stand there and hold the microphone and say, "Great job."
But you do it so well.
We'll be right back.
You do it so well. So there's a study that I think is very funny because it's about mother-in-laws. You're not.
See how fortunate he is to have had that upbringing. If there's anything I was jealous of my whole entire life, it was people who were born to got it together. I'm on the outskirts of got it together, always searching for how to get it together, but just totally lost in the minutia of everything that doesn't matter. Now, I'm switching over to Channel 2, which is a CBS this morning, and at aerospace dimension of 1.31.09, they have a commencement speech at something I've never participated in at like, I didn't graduate from Harvard, which is one of their, like, top tier, like, important efforts here on this side of, in the Northeast coast. It's Boston. It's near Boston. It says Harvard Law School. So, and Harvard's, I think, in Boston. So now, their keynote speaker that they use, same correspondent for CBS this morning, called a Dr. LaPook. And he's into this kindness, respect, and whatnot, which I don't necessarily disagree with at certain levels, but this is how they position him in their level of function of things that I was not able to join.
And
I think they have this at like Christmas time with Saint Nick. Again, Nicole, Nick, Nikki, whatever. They have like a Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, outside of, they have like this whole thing with other reindeers. Don't know why one happened the way that it did, but here we are.
And welcome back to CBS Mornings. It's time to bring you some of the stories that are the talk of the table this morning. Michelle, what you got for us?
I got something great. My talk of the table is a special in-person commencement ceremony for Harvard School of Public Health. This weekend's event was for students who graduated during the pandemic, and the keynote speaker is a very familiar face. CBS News chief medical correspondent John LaPook addressed the graduate.
See, and they use that word familiar wrong, because she is not a family member or even slightly in the lineage of Dr. LaPook. So it gets confusing how the Americans and this version of English, or English speaking, or people trying to assimilate or acclimate or whatever into an English, they use the words all wrong. And then they continuously, in large society, use the words all wrong. And then for people who actually know how to use the words correctly, which I call druidic, or whatever, it then becomes like a head scratch. Like, wait a minute. So that's one of them, because he does not technically look familial to her, but she says he looks familial. Or familiar.
Graduates. He shared stories from his career as a physician and a journalist and the lessons he's learned, including his version of the key to success.
No matter what hat I am wearing, I've come to understand that no credential in any field is as crucial to success as the ability to experience and practice empathy. Empathy is your superpower. It's your superpower.
He says that all the time. Dr. LaPook also told the graduates there will be tough times ahead, but they have chosen a career that can bring them great joy. I also want to give a shout out to Sam Furnival, who is Dr. John LaPook's medical producer's son, Amy Birnbaum, a long CBS News producer, and Sammy graduated from
Harvard Law School.
There it is.
Well, let me say that.
Again, things I wasn't allowed to partake in, or because there was no guidance, there's no mentoring, there's no construct, there's no pushing, there's no regimen, there's no regime that I'm aware of or that I can see. And if it is, then it's the one that's causing the problem with my ability to get to anything successful or anywhere I need to be by this cue point in life of 4 decades and 3 years.
Teaching you about empathy is like Sinatra teaching you how to sing.
Oh,
There is none better
There
and
is
no
none.
more deeply empathic human being walking the earth.
He is the salt.
Dr. LaPook is a gem indeed.
Yeah, and he's a great doctor too, I have to say.
Good to have him here at CBS with us.
Yes.
Well, my talk of the table is in celebration of the Queen's Jubilee coming up and how one little British girl has decided to celebrate it. 3-year-old Isla Bates is making royal rounds as a mini version of Her Majesty. Isla visits nursing home residents across the country, spreading majestic cheer, wearing the Queen's signature matching coat and hat pearls, and even a plush corgi by her side. How adorable is she? She even takes on royal duties like planting trees, just like the real Queen. I love her.
I know, she's got a little attitude there too.
It's not the love.
And her grandmother said she got the idea by seeing a young American girl dress up like the Queen for Halloween, and now she's got down her wave.
Can't let an American steal the show.
And we will start coverage of Jubilee from London on Wednesday, and we have a special on Thursday, so tune in.
Which is really interesting how they go from the toddler version and then they work their way up to Rolling Thunder on this, or Little Thunder, I think is what they call it, on a roller coaster ride. And then it segues into this woman who went on this TikTok with this immigration story where she's crying her eyes out. She got lots of attention for it, lots of likes. On mine, I usually have like one viewer. I think it goes one, and it really usually stops somewhere around, I think 5 is the cap. So it goes from 1 to 5, and that's it. And I don't really go back to view to see how many saw it, because again, I don't really get the commentary on it, and I really don't know whatever.
Want to see that?
Yeah.
I just know mine does not work the same as this fam. I think it's PHA. I don't know. They'll put her on in a minute. My system doesn't work the way her system does, but it hasn't since the beginning, because she's actually gotten to a boarding school and gotten to a biological engineer or technology specialist, and she's done very well for herself. But now she's crying that she has to then send money home in order to help her parents out of poverty, or whatever it is that she says.
My talk of the tables.
Which I'm pretty sure is illegal, but I'm just, again, I mean, this is how humans have been conducting themselves in this wild theater of where I'm sitting here bewildered, and I know there's good men and women that know about like constructing law and order on a ship. I can see it. They've given me examples of it. I'm not quite sure where this free border travel thing with this mishmash of banking and education, and like it feels like there's no real clear whatever.
Backyard roller coaster in California that looks like it's straight out of the Wild West. Sean La Rochelle began building roller coasters in his parents' backyard during the pandemic lockdown. His latest offering is called Little Thunder. It has 900 feet of track, a car that can go as fast as 22 miles an hour, and a mountain that peaks at 22 feet. And as a father who could barely assemble a 3-piece Lego project, let me tell you, this guy's not making me look good.
None of us.
Or feel good.
It's so elaborate.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Would you ride it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlotte.
Live on the edge. All right, switching gears now as we continue our special coverage for Mental Health Awareness Month. We're looking at the mental health strains that many first-generation immigrants face in the U.S. Lilia Luciano spoke with Thea Pham, an Asian-American immigrant who went viral on TikTok after sharing her emotional story. She talked about the expectations she says she faced, particularly from members of her own family.
I love my parents, but there is no boundaries because I am just a wallet now.
It was a moment of vulnerability.
I am.
I hear her English, and it doesn't even sound like her story is English is used in the appropriate verbal manner in order to construct even an argument or a logical thought pattern. Because she has no boundaries. No, she had boundaries. They bound her to some boarding school. The boarding school she then used as a platform to get into some kind of graduate program that bound her into some kind of really amazing career, which is what got her out of poverty where her parents are. And there were boundaries, and she's thriving in what was presented for her and how she was able to follow that gift of opportunity. What I'm saying is I haven't been given any of that. She has. I've seen many, many stories of them that have. I have not.
Their retirement fund.
For 27-year-old Thea Pham, that resonated with millions on TikTok.
I feel trapped and betrayed by my own culture and my own...
You know what, trapped? I feel abandoned by my own people and culture that exist somewhere in the world, but they no longer exist here.
Own family.
Pham is a first-generation immigrant from Vietnam. She came to the United States when she was 15 after getting a full scholarship to a boarding school. What was the plan when...
If boarding schools have full scholarships, because Lynn and Lou couldn't pay for boarding school either, where was the guidance to Linda and Lou in my life frame in the 1980s? I know Mr. August 11th is 1983 for Thor. They put that up on my version of whatever. So now I'm just curious, in 1980s version, I mean, maybe like the 1977 knows. I'm 78, but I'm not sure if 78 or 83 is aware that, like, there was no life planner, estate planner. There was no, here's what your daughter needs to do so she's bound and will have a chance at survival or at grooming or at husbandry or any of, like, the other options if, like, scholastic or scholarly is not the path. There was none of that within 1978 to, like, 1980 anything. And certainly into the 90s.
When you started applying to these scholarships?
My parents struggle a lot financially. My whole job in the family was to focus on education because that is the way we lift ourselves out of poverty. So that's a lot of the expectation is put on myself.
Pham went on to get her PhD in neuroscience from UCLA. She's now a biotech venture capitalist.
I remember, my mom told me, like, you have to get a full ride to college. Like, if not, like, don't even bother going home because, like, if you return home, that's a failure.
So you don't have a place to fall back on at home?
Yeah, I feel bad because I know they love me deeply, but it's also, I felt like a conversation about mental health and mental wellness is never, ever discussed.
Pham says after posting her TikTok video,
because it's not real. Mental health, like, I mean, yes, it's a whole nother league of science that's not available to the average human. So they put this umbrella, like, Band-Aid label of mental health. But the problem is that when they try to pursue action, judgment, and law inside of a state to institutionalize or forcibly medicate, that's where it becomes an even more gigantic problem with their, like, ability to how they were bound and how they got ahead of people like myself, and then to use that power to further hurt me, which has been done several times, not necessarily by something that looks like her, but I don't know what was on the back end of what actually did hurt me. Besides the fact I've been hunted several times where I've been darted like an animal, even though I wasn't acting in an animal type manner whatsoever, just sitting having a cordial conversation, and then all of a sudden I get stuck with something, and then I have no memory of what happens after that. But I'm in an area, an open area with lots of people. I have no idea who did it, why they did it, or what happened after they stuck me and I blacked out. That's life. That's been my life thus far in New York.
She quickly realized there were other first-generation immigrants who felt the same way.
Do you remember what your intention was when you made the video? It was just like literally a video diary to myself. I had like 20 followers, said I was nobody, and I posted this video at my most vulnerable moment. And then all of a sudden, I woke up to like millions of people and I was freaking out.
What did it feel like in that morning after?
I felt so much shame because I love my parents so much, and I felt like I was bringing dishonor by sharing my struggle. And I read all the comments and I realized like, oh my gosh, like I was not alone.
Hundreds of thousands of people commented on her video with their own struggles, which left fam wanting to learn more about their experiences.
I'd love to meet you.
She created multiple Zoom town hall meetings where first-generation immigrants like her.
And this love to meet you freaks the heck out of me because I've been in the field and had people hunt me down, but not in a way of like, no, we're here because we want to help. More in a, I don't know what happened after I got darted. And it's happened to me a couple of times. And again, I don't know if it's the court system in New York. I don't know if it's management. I don't know if it's this transient population. I don't know. It's really confusing at what level of exists in some kind of a construct of laws that this has been going on and they've been participating in.
Her could share their stories together. May Champion was a participant.
I felt it.
So I've tried on like a private thing, like this match where at least you get to, somebody says that they have an interest and then you can say you have an interest back. I've tried that. And again, it's more just game, which I hate. There's no set certainty. And then it leaves me in this really vulnerable position where I still have no access. And it's wasted my youth, my entire breeding season and youth of where I could have been happily with wherever I belonged, enjoying myself and participating in some kind of human activity. Instead, they've wasted my entire youth, my entire healthy period, my entire being able to have children, my everything has been wasted by this whatever version of human.
Deep, like I felt her tears.
Champion immigrated from Hong Kong when she was 5.
I think we all just feel better at the end of the day hearing that, we're not the only ones, we're not alone.
Vanessa Peza is a licensed trauma therapist.
And it's not just this one culture, because there's several different looks and transients that are trying to escape all sorts of things. And then they've got these large area projects trying to protect their rights where I'm already hurt in the field. And now they're trying to protect the problems that are now sitting on top of my problem where I can't even escape it. And they've closed every door for me to even reach out for help.
It is a very brave step to be so vulnerable and to be so open, because in a lot of different families, I think across the board, that's not necessarily something that's encouraged. But one thing that it does is it almost gives other people permission to start to speak up about their own experience.
See how she's doing this and then this is going on? I don't have this feature. I don't have a feedback loop of whatever I've been doing. There's just been none. Do I really want feedback? No. what I really want is the help that I need. I mean, in advance, it would have been great if they could have fixed the situation from the get-go. But I don't know what's really going on in the grand concourse.
Experiences. Fam says she's still working things through with her parents. But her validation in life no longer comes from fulfilling expectations.
What is success to you now? Success is no longer surviving. It's not, it's thriving. Like, I want to thrive. Being myself and have a fulfilling life. I think taking care of yourself and leading a life that you envision you to live would be so much more fulfilling.
For CBS Mornings, Lilia Luciano in Los Angeles.
We did reach out to Fam's parents. They declined to answer any of our questions.
So many people suffer in silence. It's just, they feel trapped between these two cultures, and being new Americans, it must be really
Trapped between two cultures? No. At this point, for me, there's no culture here. There's no Italian culture. There's no Irish culture. And if there is, it has not been easily accessible. There's no Polish culture. There's no Russian culture. Like, there's no Greek culture. I'm trying to think of all the other. There's no Turkish culture. There's no, like, these are some of the people I've met